Buntaro's return is the leading bombshell of this episode, and welcome back to the Bootleg Corner, guys. It is Shogun hours once again. Episode 5 is in, and it has been twists and turns all the way. We will reverse a bit and remind you of episode 3, where Buntaro seemingly went down fighting against Ishido's men, and I said it at the time, it was unclear if he died or not. Well, we get an answer to that as he returned on horseback alongside Toranaga and a large army. The explanation is that he was joined by some Ronin, and by Ronin we mean rebellious samurai, although the reason for them being Ronin is unsaid. Maybe they are Ronin for defecting from Ishido, or for supporting Toranaga, or even for their own private reasons, etc., etc. But the gist is this Ronin gave their lives to protect Buntaro, and so we can infer that he must be a very important asset to Toranaga. Now, as to how much of that we believe is another question, because I personally have doubts as to the veracity of that story. Over 2 months behind enemy lines, and I think there's a possibility, however small, that he has been turned by Ishido and the regents. Now Nagakado is next on the agenda. His rash actions against Jozen and the court messengers have earned him a tongue lashing and demotion. Toranaga weighed the events in question and decided that his son wasn't clever enough to come up with such an idea that stood harshly against his plans, and so deduced that it could only have come from the influence of Yabushige and Omi. Nagakado gets stripped of his command of the Canon regiment as punishment and given a warning to ponder the influence and advice of others before acting. Our next character is Yabushige, the funniest man on set. I don't know why, but his actions and mannerisms make me want to laugh every time for no reason at all. But back to this, Toranaga confronts him with the cannon shooting event which claimed Jozen's life, and Yabushige deflects, casting out his nephew as the individual responsible for filling Nagakado's head with ideas. He plays it down as drunk talk, but his inference is not lost to Toranaga, who recognizes it as a move for punishment to fall heavily on Omi. But a game of wits is not one where Toranaga loses to amateurs, and so Yabushige is played like a string, gives up Omi expecting backlash instead of elevation. Toranaga instead commends Omi as the procurer of brilliant ideas and tells Yabushige to inform Omi of his promotion to the command of the Canon regiment. So multiple things were achieved: punishment and demotion of his feckless son, pulling strings around Yabushige, going for his least predictable option, as well as rubbing Yabushige's face in it, promoting Omi, who he knows is in league with Yabushige, but he knows this promotion is likely to cause a rift between them. Now Buntaro is ordered to stay with Blackthorn alongside Fuji and Mariko, his wife. Well, remember, Mariko and Blackthorn have had interesting relations at night in the last episode, and so her husband is alive again. A new dynamic is here. I said it earlier that the showrunners were setting up a Mariko and Blackthorn romance angle, but with Buntaro's return, that seems to be in the gutter for now, except they write him off again. Another angle of this is where Buntaro bunking with Blackthorn is a double check on Blackthorn's activities. Buntaro's stay in Blackthorn's home is fraught with tension and innuendo as they engage in a pissing contest for reasons unknown, while Mariko bears the brunt of her husband's frustration later that night. On the other hand, the Regent Council is still not in accord. Toranaga's resignation has left them stumped, so they need to appoint a new regent to fill the void. Whatever binds them together in their campaign against Toranaga is off the books here. Consensus for the new regent appointment cannot be reached, and we get the feeling that there is indeed fire on the mountain despite all appearances. Now, as we saw with the pheasant situation, it will be easy to describe 1600s Japan as a world of extremes. Life and death are separated by a thin thread where honor is often seen as the greatest virtue. Disgrace and embarrassment are met with death, and not just of the individual involved, but of the entire family. We saw this in episode 1, where Fuji's husband insults Lord Ishido and has to commit seppuku alongside his infant son. It was probably a miracle Fuji was still alive from that incident, and this episode Mariko recounts how her entire family was put to the sword over the actions of her father. The dicey situation of life and death is further stamped by the abrupt earthquake which carries men and property alike, burying them under miles of rock and earth. Toranaga is swept away in the deluge, but is rescued by a watchful Blackthorn who spots his ceremonial fan and digs him out with the help of his men. This episode then rounds out with the introduction of a new variable, Lady Ochiba. She is mother to the Taiko's heir, a boy too young to rule at the time, hence the regents. In episode 1, she was sent to Edo to aid the birth of a newborn in Toranaga's household and reportedly kept hostage, although how much of that is true is up for debate. However, she has returned and she is making moves of her own. Whatever Ishido and the regents expected, it wasn't the heir's mother demanding control of the regent council at a time when women generally weren't involved in governance at any level. So it is a shock to Ishido and us the viewers. How much power does she hold is unspecified, but to make such demands of Ishido at the council, she must have an ace up her sleeve. Is she working alone or at the behest of Toranaga? We don't know yet, but this makes for a more exciting addition to the steering pot of Japan's leadership stakes. Now, one thing I'm also going to point out is the shaved head of the samurais, just as I did in the last episode when I talked about the feet shuffle of Japanese women. I looked into the reason for shaving the frontal part of the samurai's hair. Now, the answers for this vary between articles and forum posts. The first one says the hairstyle was done to enable smoother wearing of the soldier's helmet, as the bond kept it in place, while the shaved front made sure the samurai's head was kept cool. Then after a while, it became a status symbol in Japan to show sophistication and conformity. Another opinion states that the goal was to look older, citing the lack of prominent facial hair amongst Japanese men, and so the frontal shave was made to resemble male pattern baldness, and thus lending character and respect to the wearer. So from samurai stipulation to fashion and culture, it's unclear which came first, but these are the explanations for these distinctive hairstyles we've seen in Shogun. This is still the Bootleg Corner. Join us as we await episode 6. Do not forget to subscribe, keep it locked in, and we'll be back.